بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم لا حول ولا قوة الا بالله العلی العظیم الحمد لله رب العالمین و صلی الله علی سیدنا و نبینا ابی القاسم المصطفى محمد و آله الطیبین الطاهرین لا سیما بقیة الله فی الارضین عجل الله تعالی فرجه الشریف اللهم اخرجنی من ظلمات الوهم و اکرمنی بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of philosophical psychology, and this session coincides the beginning of the month of Ramadan. Inshallah, we will have one more session next week in the month of Ramadan. Then the institute will not be functioning during second half of Ramadan and Nowruz holidays. So for those who join us from the UK, so we have this session and next week inshallah, and then after Eid al-Fitr inshallah. So today we study lesson 5 of the book, which is about unity or multiplicity of human soul. There are few questions that philosophers who deal with human soul should answer. So some of them we will study in this lesson, some of them in the next lesson. The first question is maybe somehow strange for many people, but again, this is what philosophers discuss. Philosophers sometimes take things that ordinary people maybe find it very simple or very evident or take it for granted. They take it very serious, and they discuss because they want to make sure that everything is understood rationally. So the first question is there a soul or a spirit in every human being? So equal to the numbers of human beings, we have souls or spirits, or we have one common soul and only one spirit exists. We have many bodies, but not many spirits. So this is one question. The second question is, if we have as many souls or spirits as human beings, as individuals, then does every human being have one soul or more? It can be 3, for example, vegetative soul, animal soul, human soul, or it can be 2, or it can be 1. Question 3. If we believe that we have many human souls, does this mean that all human beings, despite their differences, especially their moral differences, do all of them fall under one species, or they may belong to different species? For example, if we consider Yazid and Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they look human beings. When you look at their body, there are similarities, but do they belong to the same category, to the same mahiyya, quiddity, or they belong to different? So these are three questions right now. Of course, there are many questions about human soul, but these are three questions that in this session and next session we will address. The third one, we leave it for next session, lesson 6 of the book. The first two questions, inshallah, we try to answer today. I repeat the questions. Question 1, is there only one soul, one spirit for all human beings? You, I, others, we don't have separate souls. We have only one soul. Many bodies, but one soul. Or soul repeats in every person. Every person has his own soul, her own soul. Question 2, if we accept that souls are many, then does every human being have only one soul or more than one? So these are the two questions for today. Those who believe that there is only one soul for all human beings, they have some arguments. Although here in the book doesn't mention who exactly has this idea. There is only reference here, and also I checked the more detailed version. Again, the same thing. There is only reference to Sayyid Jalaluddin Ashtiani's book منتخباتی از آثار حکمای الهی ایران Volume 4, selections from the works of ancient Iranian philosophers who believed in God, who were theistic philosophers, who were theosophers. So maybe among them some people had this idea. Also, there's a reference to another book, Hikmat al-Sadiqiyya, which is compiled by Mullah Hamziya Gilani. But in the text, there is no reference to any particular figure. Anyway, these people who believe that there is only one soul, then they say that our multiplicity is not real. We are, very much united because only one soul. And if our main identity is built and made by our soul, so we shared identity. Why they believe in such a kind of a strange position? Maybe one reason at least can be what is in the book, that they believe human soul is mujarrad, is immaterial, number one. Number two, in philosophy, in Bidaya, Nihaya, we have said that everything which is mujarrad can only have one individual, one instance, one mistaq. كل مجرد نوع منحصر بفرده. And we argued for that. For example, in Bidayatul Hikmah, we said that we should see how, in the first place, kathra comes, multiplicity. If kathra is for zatiyat or arazi lazim, then we cannot have any individual. If jins or fast or no, or something which is not in the essence, but it is a requirement of essence, is arazi lazim, something which is not separable, like imkan for mahiyya, zawjiyat for arba'a. So whether it is zati or arazi lazim, then in every individual there must be kasra. If in the mahiyya or araziyya lazim of mahiyya of something was kasra, so every individual has to be kathir. This is not possible. This is khulf. So kasra should be for something that can have araz mufariq, something that can sometimes be there, sometimes not be there. Like for example, to be a writer, to be a poet, to be a physician for human beings is not zati, number one, is not also araziyya lazim, it's araziyya mufariq. It's something that sometimes exists, sometimes doesn't exist. So kasra must be for something which is araziyya mufariq. Araziyya mufariq needs madde. Hamil al-quwwa. And mujarradat, they don't have madde. So this is what we discussed in Bidayah. But over there we said that is for mujarrad tam. Not mujarrad like human soul, which is not tam. Human soul can have changes, can have madde and quwwa. So I don't know why they are bringing this here. In human spirit, we have no problem in having something for some time, not another time. كل مجرد تام نوع منحصر بفرده. Otherwise, مجرد ناقص or مجرد ذاتی and maddi in fail like nafs, this doesn't apply. In the book mentions different arguments, but I think it's not very difficult to understand that this doesn't work. Plus, we can find in ourselves through our own intuitive understanding that I am different from you or others. Everyone referring to himself or herself through intuition, or you can say knowledge by presence, would understand that he or she is a reality different from other human beings, even from relatives, even from children, from parents. We are different. Plus, we have different conditions. For example, at the same time that one person is sad, another person can be happy. Someone is terribly sad, someone is extremely happy. How can there be only one soul while happiness and sadness belong to the soul, not to the body? Yes, body can have some signs of sadness or happiness in the blood, beats, etc., but heartbeats, etc., blood circulation. But that's different from understanding sadness, because it's only soul who can understand and experience sadness, or hope, despair, fear, these kind of things. Different individuals can have different experiences. If there were one soul, this was not possible. So we can easily move to the next question and then the third question for next week. Both of them is after we reject the idea that there is only one soul for all human beings. So we accept that every human being has different soul. Okay? Now, the question is there only one soul or more? Here we definitely know that we have many different functions. In the past, we talked about different faculties of the soul and their actions, and we classified them for nafs nabati, nafs haywani, nafs natiqah. So, is there only one soul and many faculties, or is there, for example, one soul and no faculties, or are there different souls and different faculties? So these are different positions. Aristotle and Ibn Sina and peripatetic philosophers Masha'un, they believe that human beings have only one soul. But along with many faculties, or quwa, plural form for quwa. So one soul, but different faculties. These faculties are under the control of nafs. In Bidayatul Hikmah and Nihayatul Hikmah, we have discussion about different kinds of fa'il or agent, and one of them is fa'il bit taskhir. When the agent or doer does something but under the control and dictation, for example, of another agent, another doer. Nafs is musakhir, and these faculties are musakhar. So they function, for example, the one which is responsible for nutrition, the one which is responsible for perception, the one which is responsible for reasoning, etc. We have different kinds, but they are under control, management, lordship of nafs. Lordship in the sense of tadbir and running. So, in order to establish that we have only one soul, Aristotle, Ibn Sina, and Masha'un in general, they say that when you refer to yourself, as we did when we wanted to refute the idea that there is only one soul among all, we say no. Every person understands that there is a soul in him different from others. But another thing that you understand when you refer to yourself through knowledge by presence is that you realize that your soul is one. There is wahda, there is oneness in the soul. Because you, through your own intuition, through your own conscience, you realize that I am the one that understands, the one who understands, the one who hears, the one who smells, the one who, I don't know, touches, the one who views and watches. I am one person doing all these things. Or, for example, one of the things that they highlight is that the fact that at each time I can pay attention to normally one thing. So, for example, if I am very angry and upset, at that time I cannot enjoy, for example, the taste of the food. If I am very sad, I cannot, for example, enjoy beautiful recitation, for example. This shows that there is one soul, and this soul therefore can be preoccupied with something and would not be available for other things to be understood. Mullah Sadra doesn't agree with this argument, and he says it is possible that we have different functions, because Mullah Sadra wants to attribute, inshallah we'll explain later, all these actions of faculties to nafs herself. So according to Mullah Sadra, he says, I accept that there is one soul, but why these faculties cannot function under the control of nafs? Okay, you say control of nafs, no problem. But why they cannot function differently and separate from each other? Imagine, this is my example. For example, there is a king who has in his government different sections, different ministers, and each do different things. Each does different things, but they are all under the control of the king. So why these faculties cannot be doing different things and still be under the management of nafs? So this is a question that is a kind of criticism of Mullah Sadra of the Masha'un. Then, for showing that there are different faculties, Masha'un have argued in different ways. The one which is mentioned in the book is about differences of concepts. They say faculties in our mind, those faculties which relate to understanding, have different concepts. For example, the concept for seeing and the concept for hearing are different from each other and different from the concept of tasting. So they have different concepts, and taking or abstracting, to be more precise, different concepts from the same thing is not possible. This is what we had also in Bidayatul Hikmah about whether wujud can be a common haqiqa or not. We had this discussion that intida'ul kathir and al-kathir bima huwa kathir is not possible. So they say, I repeat, we have different concepts, notions in our mind, seeing, hearing, smelling, etc. These are different from each other. Seeing is not the same as hearing. And when you can abstract different actions from something, it means that that thing cannot be one. That thing must be multiple. So the faculty for seeing and the faculty for listening and the faculty for tasting should be different from each other, and at the same time under the control of nafs. The criticism is that, first of all, we bring a counter example, misal naqzi. What about Allah's attributes? Allah has different attributes, but they are abstracted from one reality. There is no problem. There can be one reality that gives us chance to abstract different concepts. Ibaratuna shatta wa husnuka wahid. Even according to Masha'un themselves, hiss mushtarak, which is the common faculty for understanding, takes all the perceptions from different faculties and can keep them. So this is also possible, that something understands watching and listening and tasting. in general, there is no problem that from the same thing we can get different concepts. No problem. We can say this is mawjud, this is mumkin, for example, or wajib, this is alim, this is qadir. It's possible. Anyway, this was the idea of Ibn Sina and Ash-Sha'un in general, that we have one nafs and many faculties. Mullah Sadra believes we have one nafs and one faculty, although we have very diverse actions. All the faculties which relate to our humanity, or to being animal, or to being a plant, and even our natural properties, like a jism, like a physical object, all relate to nafs. قوای نباتی, vegetative, قوای حیوانی, animal, and insani, human faculties, all are the same as nafs. They are maratib wa shu'un nafs. They are different ranks and aspects of nafs. For example, imagine you have a multi-store building. There is basement, there is ground floor, there is first floor, second floor, etc. But they are not from another building, although they are different from each other, but they are all part of the same building. At one level, this building offers lobby and reception. At another level, this building offers, for example, offices, shops. Another, flats for people to live. Another is a storage, for example. So there can be one reality, but with different functions. He says, let me read for you a few lines from the book. قوای نباتی, حیوانی و انسانی, vegetative faculties, animal faculties, and human faculties, they are all the same as human soul. To be said more precisely, they are ranks, degrees, and aspects of nafs. So nafs in one level is like the building, for example, in ground floor. So nafs in one level is doing what vegetative faculty or faculties demand, like nutrition, like then seeing, hearing, etc. So nafs is doing these idrakat, these perceptions, not the faculty. So this view is known as وحدت در کثرت و کثرت در وحدت, unity in multiplicity and multiplicity in unity. So nafs, according to Mullah Sadra, is one being. Of course, in every person is different, but every person has one being as nafs, and at the same time this nafs is hearing, is watching, is tasting, is touching, is doing different things. According to Mullah Sadra, unlike Ibn Sina, who believed that different concepts cannot be taken from a single mistaq, Mullah Sadra doesn't believe, and he says that it's possible to get different concepts from the same thing. Some of the arguments of Mullah Sadra. First of all, he says we don't need argument. It's badihi, it's self-evident. If you really understand and conceive the subject and matter, you find it easy. And he believes that some people have not paid enough attention to this idea that this is self-evident, this is badihi. He says, every one of us referring to himself, so we keep referring to ourselves and we want to solve these things through knowledge by presence. So he says, every one of us in himself or herself find that I can see, and I, for example, actually am seeing, but they don't see the faculty for seeing. I can hear, and I do hear, but there is no faculty for hearing that I can be aware of. So it's nafs who does all these things that Masha'un attribute to faculties. Although Sheikh Fayyazi, Hafadhahullah, disagrees with some of the points of Mullah Sadra, and he believes a common critique that he has is that what Mullah Sadra says can be true for animal and human aspect. Wahda can be for animal and human qualities and actions. We can say they are all coming from nafs. But when it is for vegetative, or when it is for even non-vegetative, non-living beings, no. That can be, for example, part of it can be for nafs nabati, part of it can be for sowar no'iyeh. So there is a difference of opinion here between Sheikh Fayyazi and Mullah Sadra. Mullah Sadra says, after saying it is badihi, says we bring also some arguments for the people maybe don't find it badihi. We mention also some arguments. We had this also in Bidayatul Hikmah. If nafs was not united with all the faculties, etc., we didn't have only one nafs, then how could nafs be aware of what different faculties understand? I can understand what I see and what I hear and what I touch, what I taste, but if there was different things and my nafs was not one and single, I could not go and do things from different categories. For example, we understand that this, in months of Ramadan, we have shole zart. It's a kind of dessert, which is very sweet and very tasty. So this shole zart is zard, is yellow, and at the same time is sweet. But understanding yellowness is a matter of seeing. Understanding sweetness is a matter of tasting. But no matter how different they are, I can understand both of them. So this shows that the nafs is doing this understanding. Otherwise, the one that understands one was not able to understand the other. The second argument that Mullah Sadra brings is that if that aspect of your being which is responsible for ma'qulat is different from that one which is responsible for understanding mahsusat. Ma'qulat, you can say intelligibles. Mahsusat, you can say things which are perceived. So if we had different faculties or different souls, then we were not able to understand these things in connection with each other. And we had to be two different beings. The third argument that Mullah Sadra brings is idrak wahdat. He says every human soul is mutashakhis, is individuated, it's one. Every human soul is one. And this body of every person is under this one soul, which is running and managing this body, has a kind of existential lordship, rububiyat takwini. So badan, jism, physical body, is under the lordship and control of nafs. So nafs is understanding whatever happens to body or through body becomes available for us to know. So nafs with its unity understands details, particular things, general and universal things, kulli, juz'i, all are understood by nafs, because understanding and idrak is coming from nafs. Mullah Sadra then mentions some objections to his view. He says some philosophers have criticized this idea. For example, they say this idea is in conflict with Qa'idiyya al-Wahid. You say nafs wahid does different things, but Qa'idiyya al-Wahid says al-Wahidu la yasturu anhu illa al-Wahid. From one, only one comes. Meaning, how can nafs be responsible for different actions? The answer is that Qa'idiyya al-Wahid can only be applied to something which is absolutely one. Otherwise, if there is kathra, after several levels coming down, al-Wahid, little by little, becomes more diverse, more multiple. And therefore, it can be originating different things. Even in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, maybe someone says that although Allah is absolutely simple, but still because He has different qualities, He can do more than one thing. La yasturu anhu illa al-wahid is a restriction, is a limitation, and maybe this would not apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second argument against Mullah Sadra's view is that according to your view, contradictions and contradictory things happen to nafs. For example, something has to be mujarrad and maddi. Nafs should be maddi to understand, for example, mahsusat or even things that are lower, and has to be mujarrad to understand higher things. Nafs, when it is nafs nabati, how can be the same as nafs when it is nafs natiqah? But the answer of Mullah Sadra is that if you are talking about something at the same level, then there can be tanaquz. But if something has different martaba, has different ranks, in one level is non-living being, in another is a living being at the level of vegetables, in another is at the level of animals, then it is human being. So if we have this hierarchy and these ranks, then there is no problem. The third argument against Mullah Sadra's view is that it is in conflict with some hadith. Mullah Sadra himself was a great scholar of hadith. You know, he has commentary on Al-Kafi, as he has also book of tafsir, and he's also a philosopher, he's a mystic, etc. So one of the arguments that he mentions is that you are ignoring some hadith. At the same time, you say you are committed to the hadith. Like what? For example, there is a hadith in Basa'ir al-Darajat. This is not the only hadith. There is actually there's a bab, there's a chapter. There are 6 hadiths. We mentioned one hadith from that section of Basa'ir al-Darajat. In Basa'ir al-Darajat, this is compiled by one of the companions of Imam Askari alayhi salam, whose name was Abu Ja'far Muhammad ibn al-Hasan ibn Farrukh Safar. We find that Allah has put in prophets and imams 5 souls. Oh, Mullah Sadra, why you say 1? You know, Mullah Sadra is bringing this as a kind of counter argument. And in the believers 4, and in kuffar and animals 3. So basically all of them have more than 1 soul. So Mullah Sadra says, if you bring such argument against my position, then I will tell you what's my answer. But first let's read one of these hadiths. Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi, he says, قال أبو عبد الله عليه السلام يا جابر إن الله خلق الناس ثلاثة أصناف. O Jabir, Allah has created people in 3 groups. وهو قول الله تعالى وكنتم أزواجا ثلاثة. So it's أصحاب اليمين, أصحاب الشمال, and مقربون. فالسابقون هو رسول الله وخاصة الله من خلقه. In these people, Allah has put 5 spirits. جعل فيهم 5 أرواح. One is روح القدس, one is روح الإيمان, one is روح القوة, one is روح الشهوة, one is روح المدرج or بدن. In mu'minin, there are 4: روح الإيمان, روح القوة, and things like that. So Mullah Sadra has to have a kind of explanation, a kind of answer to this. He says here, it seems that when it says in the person, in the prophets, for example, 5 qualities are put, in the believers 4 are put, it doesn't mean that they have different entities, different identities, different realities. Rather, it refers to different dimensions of the same nafs. Zahir in riwayat murad nis. We cannot interpret them according to their zahir. بلکه مراد ابعاد نفس است. نه اینکه نفس چند وجود داشته باشد. What are the aspects, what are the dimensions of nafs? And when you refer to your own nafs, you realize that you are one. So, what is the selected opinion of Sheikh Fayyadi Hafidhahullah? His opinion is that we have two souls, not three, as some people say, not one, as Mullah Sadra says. We have two. Nafs insani, which also includes animal aspect. Nafs nabati, for things that relate to the body. They are very low functions for the body. We have two things. Even in his more detailed book, النفس الفلسفي, he says the same thing. He chooses the same view and position, but brings more discussion to support it. So, Mullah Sadra, one soul and all the faculties are to be united in the soul. Ibn Sina, one soul but different faculties. Sheikh Fayyadi, two souls and different functions. Nabati and Insani, which includes Haywani as well. Okay, Alhamdulillah, we finished this part. And then, inshallah, we continue with the other question next week. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. If you have questions, if you have comments, please share.